on, you get me fired up. I get right disgusted with the way these Republicans are just bending over.
The opinions and recommendations expressed by Dan are his own and do not necessarily represent the opinions of this station or any of the show's sponsors.
Welcome back, American Family Radio Network Financial Issues. I'm Dan Celia. We are going to get to the phones. Stay with the phones if you're going to queue your call up. Today's a good day to do it. We'll stay with them. We'll try to move as quick as we can. 866-300-9298. If you got a question about your financial stewardship, if you got a question or a comment in reference to the economy, I would love to hear from you. 866-300-9298. Let's take a quick look at the markets. Everything's positive right now. The Dow's up 19. Don't know where it opened. I wasn't looking at it, so I'm not sure whether it opened negative or not. But right now, it's only up 20 right now. The Dow's up 20. The S&P up 2. So that's where we are right now. We're looking at I'm watching interest rates very closely on the bonds, on the bond market. See where that goes. That's got to be some concern as well to Janet Yellen, who's going to be looking at these numbers today that came out, thinking about the forecast that Ben Bernanke made. You know, it was interesting. I heard this morning on some report, I don't know where it was, but I heard this morning someone talking about the Fed, talking about how robust, how great the economy is. And I was thinking to myself, you know, you might serve your audience well by reminding everybody that Ben Bernanke hasn't been right yet. He hasn't made a good call or an accurate call about the economy right. This is one of the smartest men from all accounts that in the economy that knows more about the economy than anything, and he hasn't made one accurate call. But now all of a sudden this one is going to be accurate. I don't know how they figure that, but anyway, let me go back to the phones. 866-300-9298. Let me go to Jim. Jim's calling us from Texas. Hey, Jim.
Hello. I have two questions here. One,
okay.
I called my mortgage company. I have my mortgage through a credit union yesterday, and I had told them, hey, I've been with you for a little bit. Well, I've been with the mortgage company for a while. I've had my mortgage with them. I refinanced it with them almost 2 years ago. I've been really faithful in my payments. You can look at my account. I paid more against my principal. What can you do for me?
Right.
And they looked through it, and they said they could do a recast. And what if I understand correctly, is they take my principal, what it's at now, and reboot everything based on what my principal is now.
Right. That's what that is. And oftentimes it lowers your payment, but it also reboots the clock. So now some don't. Some will say, okay, here's where you are today. You've got 26 years left on your mortgage, and we'll reboot it for 26 years with a new amortization schedule for that 26 years. And because it's based on a lower principal, your payment's going to come out lower, maybe. So I'm not sure which kind they were doing, but I would say this to you. I wouldn't do anything that's going to add the time back in unless you believe that you're going to be selling this house in the next 5 or 6 years. This is your, a starter home, and or you're going to get transferred, you're going to move on or something like that.
Now, one of the things I have done is in the last 2 years, and this is probably odd from other people, I've paid more than $22,000 against the principal in the last 2 years.
Mm.
My idea is I take what I have ever after I've done savings, tithes, everything else, and my wife and I, we put it against the principal, and the idea is to get this thing paid off as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And based on what I understood of this, I ran some numbers, and I saw, whoa, hey, that could be more that I put against the principal each month if I did this.
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, if you're going to stay on that aggressive schedule, which is wonderful, if you're going to stay on that aggressive schedule, then it almost becomes irrelevant as to how much time you put back on it, because it's all going to be about the principal. So, and the principal is going to get paid off at such and such a time, and almost no matter what you do, except that if they add time to it, it might extend it a little bit. But if they don't add time to it, it wouldn't really matter. My concern is if something in your circumstances would change, Jim. So, maybe one of your jobs changes, maybe, something happens where, which is not necessarily a bad thing, where you're just you're not able at this point to continue to dump that extra money onto your principal, then, you may be stuck with a longer term. I like what you're doing, and I think it's great. But are you trying, you're just thinking that I want to get my payment reduced so that you can have more free cash flow to put back to the principal?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what did they tell you about the term on the recast? What did they tell you about that?
We didn't go that far into that. I just took basic notes on it. I wanted to look more into it.
Yeah.
And again, there's the protection in the multiple to counsel, so I wanted to give you a buzz on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would give him a call back and say, the way, according to my calculations, I've got X amount of years left on my mortgage. What's this going to do to me from a time standpoint? Because I think that's an important question to ask. But again, it may be somewhat irrelevant if you're continuing to work to pay that principal down. So, but I would ask the question anyway, because I think it's important to note that, just to protect yourself on the downside should things change in your life.
Okay.
All right.
Noted.
Good.
Then I had one other
Go ahead.
Quick question here.
Okay.
You mentioned that you were asked to go to Ukraine to speak at a leadership conference.
Yes, I am. Mm-hmm.
If you're looking for a personal photographer or someone to go with you, I would love to go back.
Oh, you've been there. That's great.
Since 2003, I've spent numerous amount of time in Eastern Europe, most of it in Ukraine and Russia, and I just love the people, the culture, everything about it. Yeah,
I do too. I love it there. We've been there several times. We have friends. This journey is they wanted me to go from the Ukraine to Russia, but because of the time, I'm not able to do that. But so I had to pick one, and of course I picked the Ukraine because I know folks there, and I've been there more than I've been to Russia. It's a very different environment, very much a better environment than it is in Russia. But boy, I'll tell you, email me that little note. Just say, put on the subject line photographer, and I'll throw it in the file there on my Ukraine, and keep that in mind. I'm not sure what's all going on. I'm going with I've been asked to go with an organization, but to do that, an academic organization, but would love, throw it at me, man. That'd be great.
Will do.
All right. Thanks, Jim. I appreciate the call. Good stuff. Let me go to Nina. Nina in Texas.
Yes, this is me.
Yes.
Dan, I was going to ask you something. You may not can help me at all, but I think you probably could.
Okay.
Give me some information. We have a house that's paid for, and it's and then we have a house that we owe on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm 65, and my husband is 67, and we don't know what to do. Either move out this house that's paid for, and go to town to live. We're out in the country right now,
mm-hmm.
and we're just kind of we live on Social Security and his TMNR.
Mm-hmm.
TMRS.
So the house that you live in now is paid for, and are you moving to a house that isn't paid for? Is that what you're saying?
No, what we want to do is sell this house, maybe the one that's paid for.
Uh-huh. And go to town and live. Okay.
And maybe what would be the best thing to do?
Well, I think I don't have a problem with, if that's something that would make you guys more comfortable to move closer to town or in town, that's fine. I just wouldn't want you, there's a couple of things that I wouldn't want you to do. I wouldn't want you to move to rent. I wouldn't want you to do that. And I wouldn't want you to move and get a mortgage. I wouldn't want you to do that. So, having said that, if you can sell the house that you're in and use the proceeds of that home to buy something, in town where you're not going to create a mortgage, because that's the last thing you want to do at this point in your life, to have a mortgage or to pay rent, then I would be perfectly okay with it. I would be a little hesitant if, I don't want you to have to move and that move create a, something that is going to hurt your cash flow every month because you now either have rent or mortgage payment. You're likely to already be faced, if you move closer to town, maybe with higher taxes, maybe some higher insurance and things like that. So I wouldn't want you to do it with any kind of debt, and I would consider rent a debt, because it is the difference between rent, though, is you can't get out from under that debt because you got to live somewhere. So I wouldn't want you to do that. So I don't know if that's what you were thinking or not, but if you're going to sell this house to buy something cash, basically, maybe something smaller or something in town, and maybe even still have some left over, then I would be fine with that. I just don't want you to get in a place where you've got monthly expenses that you don't have now.
All right. Well, that's what I wanted to know.
Okay. Well, good. That makes, and I'm, I'm glad you called them, because that's what's important. Because here's the thing: you guys may feel really good about it now, and you may feel really able to do that. But what I do when I say that to you is I'm thinking about when you're 75, not when you're 65 or when you're 80. I'm thinking about then. And the last thing you want to be thinking about at that point is what income I have coming in now, because now your income has been eaten away by 10 or 15 years of inflation. So your purchasing power is not the same. In other words, you're not going to buy the same bag of groceries with $100 in 5 years that you do today because of inflation. That means your money is not going as far, and that's purchasing power. It's called purchasing power risk that we all have because of inflation. So I don't want you to be in a place where you're 75, 10 years from now. You've already seen your income not being able to go as far and have this, monthly rent or that mortgage. So that's why I say that. I'm looking out ahead. Okay?
All right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome, Nina. I appreciate the call. 866-300-9298. 866-300-9298. Let's see if we have time to get to Tom. Hey, Tom.
Hey, Dan. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Question for you. I have $100,000 in IRA right now, and it's in CDs.
Okay.
And in April, it comes due to do something with.
Okay.
What would you recommend that I do with that? I've got, long story short, I'm a physician, and I was in solo practice for 20 years and got tired of fighting the government system. Mm-hmm. And now I work for a healthcare entity. And so now I have a 401k set up through them.
Okay.
And so just got a little background information.
How much, Tom, how much longer do you think you're going to have income coming, working for the organization? How many more years?
5 to 10 years.
Yeah. You know what? I would like to see you probably keep half of that in very liquid cash, which I would consider that a CD or an IRA. You're not going to get any kind of decent CD rate, although I think this year we're going to see CD rates come up. But I'd like to see you set it just in a money market for the time being. And I'd like to see you take the other half and start weaning it in to the market in some way, shape, or form. And what I mean by that is you'd open up maybe a brokerage account at a TD Ameritrade or E-Trade or one of those places, and you open up an IRA account, and you start weaning it in to 3 or 4 investments. That would be one option. I wouldn't put it all in right away. I would say month of February, take a piece of it, maybe 15, 20% of it, and buy into 4 different positions. And month of March, month of April, do the same thing till it's all in, and do that so that you can buy in if things start to come down. or go to timothyplan.com and just buy a couple mutual funds and forget about it. I would be okay with that if you don't want to be dealing with, messing with looking at all those other options. But that's what I would do with it. I think you got to get at least 50% of it, Tom. Maybe even 60% of it. But I think between now, I think the market's going to pull back. So in November, December, you may be thinking, I should have never done that. But, I think you do it with an attitude that, you know what, I got 8 to 10 years. I'm just going to forget about it. And if you say you have 5, you really have 10, because the first 5, that cash is going to help you out with that. So you really have 10 years for this money, and I think you just forget about it, and I think you'll do better in the long run. Got to run, Tom. You can stay on the line if you like, if you got to follow up. 866-300-9298.